The automakers are getting slammed. By the way, this is a bifurcated story. Partially due on the disappointing February new car sales, which just came out today. They were lower, but these companies use a lot of steel as well. GM down 4%, nearly 5%. Ford down 3.5%. Fiat Chrysler lower by 3%. Honda down 2%, nearly 3%. Remember, Honda has a plant in Ohio. So we need to watch all of that. These aren't just, oh, well, that's a Japanese company. This reaction, is it overblown? Or are we about to face a brutal trade war, not just with China, but with our allies from whom U.S. manufacturers also buy steel? Let's bring in former U.S. Trade Representative Ron Kirk. And, sir, you actually struck some types of tariff deals during the Obama administration. Why do you see an outsized reaction here?
Well, part of it is the hyperactive nature of the current administration's trade policy makes it a little bit difficult to gather some coherence for it. And Liz, you're right. Not only the Obama administration, but the Bush administration before us both put tariffs on imported steel, but it was much more targeted, followed a finding by the Department of Commerce that there had been violations by China in particular, not nearly as broad.
Well, Ron,
as
let
what
me
is
just jump in because
here.
I want people to understand. President George W. Bush, 2002, imposed, 30% tariffs on steel imports. But he actually cited damage to domestic industry. So
Right.
has President Trump. However, President Trump is also invoking national security on this issue. And I want to explain that to our viewers, meaning if something happened and suddenly we were dependent on a country that turned unfriendly for our steel, read China, that would be a national security issue if we don't have enough here to start manufacturing or ramping up a war machine.
Well, there are, look, we're never going to compromise our ability to defend ourselves. And I've got to believe, particularly with the leadership that we have within the Defense Department, that they could be able to construct an argument to the president that would make sure we're not compromised there. But the market's reaction, I think, speaks pretty plainly to the concern across manufacturers all across this country who all share a common goal of making sure that we have good jobs for Americans. And you can have tariffs, retaliatory tariffs, when they're done in a thoughtful and targeted way, as President Obama did it, as President Bush did it. But
okay,
this paint with a broad brush it could spark, as you were concerned about, a trade war that in the end is going to hurt American workers, and it's going to raise the cost of all of those goods and services.
Well, these steel executives were in the White House saying they're ready to hire. They were absolutely thrilled by this because, for better or for worse, U.S. manufacturers and builders will be forced to either pay deal with tariffs or a tariff or a trade war, or they will buy U.S. steel. I want you to listen to something President Trump said during this meeting where he did blame other administrations. He didn't name names, but listen to how he said it.
The fact is we weren't treated and we haven't been treated fairly by other countries. But I don't blame the other countries. When I was in China, I said, listen, President Xi, I have a lot of respect for President Xi. I said, I don't blame you. If you're able to get away with making almost $500 billion a year off of our country, how can I blame you? Somebody agreed to these deals.
Somebody agreed to the deals.
Well, look, Liz, we don't have enough time to talk about all of this president's obsession with trying to claim credit for things that other administrations have done. Frankly, the Obama administration put in place the most aggressive enforcement program we've had in years, including against China. But what we want, I want to make it plain, all of us want to protect American jobs, all of us want to create jobs, but trying to just help one industry when you're also about to embark, the president says he wants a $3.5 trillion infrastructure program. All of those industries are going to be dependent on steel and aluminum. And if we can source that here in America, great. But if you can also source it in a thoughtful way for particularly allies like Korea and, as you mentioned earlier, in Europe, in which we also sell them in a number of products, we all win from that. And what we've seen lacking in this administration is any understanding of the coordination of the linking of our economic strength to our ability to not only just import goods, but the fact that we are selling products and finished products, as you mentioned, like Boeing jets, to many of these other countries.